evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, dear leaders, great scholars. Thank you so much for joining us once again tonight. My name is Mazwe Majola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. How wonderful it is to meet again as we do every Wednesdays as leaders, as scholars, as we meet to encourage each other, to inspire each other, to correct each other, to admonish each other, to guide each other. Yes, yeah, this is a community of leaders. Every Wednesday's masterclass where peers speaking to other peers or peers addressing other peers, scholars talking to other scholars. Wonderful when we meet together, we learn, we unlearn, we relearn, and we co-learn, because as we always say that leadership, it's a journey. Leadership, it's not a destination. So we've got to constantly sharpen ourselves, constantly learn from each other. And that's what we always do here every Wednesday. And thank you so much for joining us. May I welcome our members and our regulars, those men and women who are here almost every week, or as often as possible. As you know, that we really learn a lot from each other. And thank you so much for joining us. And a special welcome to those colleagues who are joining us for the first time. If you are here for the first time, you've never been with us, thank you so much. And please feel at home. And yeah, do join this community and relax and participate wherever possible. Don't hold back. Don't think that you are we are joining for the first time, so just want to listen to other people. Yes, it's good to listen to other people, but also like to learn from you. There's a very good reason why you are here. So yeah, feel at home and just enjoy the session. Tonight we are discussing water management leadership, science, governance, and community integration for sustainability. Very, very important topic, especially in South Africa. In South Africa, when I was talking to Professor Beatrice, and I was saying, you know, in South Africa we have this water problem. Can we learn really, and can we talk about this? And hopefully, it's something that we can really try to talk about in this session, so that we can see how we can contribute and how we can assist wherever possible our structures, our government, as we always do in this platform. We've done that in the past, and we continue doing that because we are here as thought leadership platform, so that we can, wherever possible, assist. This is exactly why we are here tonight. And my Professor Beatrice, my sister Beatrice, the beauty is that she's part of us. I mean, she's part of this community. So that is the beauty of this community, as we always say, you know. I mean, it's yeah, you know, it's something that I don't know how to explain it, but I always say 95% of participants who are here are our past speakers or our past panelists. So today is someone else, next week is someone else, as per different expertise. We just, as I said, we just encourage each other, and we just learn from each other as we should be doing that. So Professor Beatrice Opeolu is founder and director of BEE Solutions and Consultancy Services. She's based here in South Africa in Cape Town, but also she does work a lot in Nigeria. But she travels a lot. I mean, she's all over the place. When I was speaking to her, I said, "Are you in the Republic of South Africa, or we are far away? Because I want you to address us just just saying." Thank God I'm in South Africa, but I'm so glad that even when she's away, at times she will connect even overseas. As I'm saying that she's a scholar, she's a professor, she's a speaker, she's a keynote speaker. She gets to be invited everywhere. I mean, in all different universities where she's a visiting professor. Now she's got a very longest CV or profile here. And if you don't mind, my professor, probably that I will not really read everything as you will expect. Uh, I wish I could share with everyone what we have here, the longest CV. But yes, I'm saying that she is the founder and the director of BE Solutions and Consultancy. She's in 2025, or which is now visiting researcher uh, of Ecological and Environmental Monitoring Research Group, Department of Chemistry, Bioscience and Environmental Engineering, University of Stavanger, that is in Norway, and then also adjunct professor, Faculty of Applied Sciences at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, Professor Extraordinaire for Department of Environmental Science for College of Agriculture and Environmental Services at the University of South Africa, UNISA. Visiting researcher at University of Norway. I've said that one. And then she has participated in many, as I said, in many conferences, publications. It's a lot. It's a lot. We are so happy to be hosting Professor Beatrice tonight, and we're so looking forward to learning from you, my sister, and my professor, as we are grappling on this topic, water management leadership, the intersection of science, governance, and community integration for sustainability. Thank you very much. Okay, let me just, I see that one too. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You may go ahead.
Thank you so much, Prof, for this wonderful opportunity to share with our colleagues this evening my knowledge about water management and its leadership based on my experience. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the invitation, Prof. Majola. It's a great pleasure, I must say, to join this leadership conversation. I feel really honored, Prof, to be considered a speaker in this wonderful platform. And it is a conversation that is really timely, and we cannot overemphasize the urgency of this conversation at this point in time. You know, there's that word that we all are familiar with, that water is life, but we also know that through this life, water that is called life, we also have all kinds of challenges, from droughts to floods and pollution, diseases and conflicts. And some years ago, about 8 years ago, we were actually near the zero in Cape Town, in the Western Cape. And for me, it was like a hard lesson and the reality of the things that we have been teaching and, preaching the gospel we've been preaching over the years. But looking back into that experience and where we are today, the big question is, did we really learn enough? And I want us to ponder on that. And so, what I will try to do today is to share my own insights about what water means and why are we talking water all the time, and why is everybody interested in water, and how can we lead water management differently in a scientifically, ethically, and inclusive way to secure the water sustainability of our continent, Africa. And please forgive me when I talk about our continent because I'm a Pan-Africanist to the core. And for me, Africa is the home that we have, and Africa is the one that we can really talk about and that we can really make lots of difference on. So I would be referring a lot to Africa. So what I will try to do is to just give some context into why water and the scarcity and all of those and all of the other issues that are related to its governance and leadership. What is it that we have now and the opportunities that we have as a continent now to be a force and a voice to be reckoned with at global level in terms of sustainability of natural water resources. And of course, we'll draw some concluding remarks and perhaps the pointer or something I should drop out already up front is that you perhaps have more questions than answers after my presentation. Maybe we can talk about the questions with you at the end of the day. So we have this triple planetary crisis according to United Nations. We have climate change, we have biodiversity loss, and we have pollution. And if you look at these three, somehow, the three are linked to each other, whether they're linked to water. Whether you're talking about climate change, it's about drought or flooding or other things that comes with the two extremes. And of course, this links to biodiversity loss. If in aquatic ecosystems, freshwater rivers, there is flooding, for example, there may be biodiversity loss. And if there's drought, the same thing can happen. The same thing with pollution. So all of these three planetary crises, in some way, they are connected to our water resources. And so we have issues with water. It's about the availability, it's about the affordability, it's about accessibility, it's about quality, quantity, and everything that has to do with water and its access. And of course, linked to these are also our food production systems that require lots of water. And of course, we need to feed, we need to eat. And energy generation and usage is another angle to all of this. So there's this popular, theme these days that people will talk about the water, food, energy nexus. And it's because all of this, they are linked to each other. And the bigger picture of the thing is that our water, food production systems, energy generation and usage, they are all linked to each other in some way, in many ways, actually. So climate change and water issues. Why is it climate change? Why are we talking about climate change? We're talking about climate change because it changes a lot of things. That is why this conversation matters now. It is about industrialization. It is about population growth. It is about governance gaps. And it's also about global policies and global issues with regards to climate change and climate change effect mitigation and all of those. So because of climate change, you will know temperature increase. It's one of the triggers. And so that leads to all of these other things that you perhaps are familiar with by now. It's about health issues and risk, it's poverty, and of course, local conflicts and global conflicts. And people are already postulating actually that the next big war will be war about fresh water or access to water. So climate change, contributes to every aspect of our lives, whether it's our physical lives or and I will get to the spiritual part of water also as Africans. So what then happens is that because of climate change, ecosystems get disrupted, animals lose their homes, ecosystems, certain organisms can thrive more than others in extreme situations, and some can be wiped out completely. Human systems get disrupted because of, sicknesses, diseases, accessibility to water and other things that comes with disruptions. And of course, urban systems get affected also because of infrastructural issues that are necessary to mitigate the effects of climate change also. And of course, economic system, because then there's loss of jobs, loss of livelihoods, and then that affects GDP and so on and so forth. And all of this then links to social systems, unrest, conflicts, all kinds of disruptions that we don't want to mention on this platform. And so it is important that we are aware of this. So then the big question for me is, what is it that you think water leadership mean? When you hear water leadership, what does that mean? Are we leading water management in Africa through crisis response, or are we leading through visionary stewardship? So are we responding to crisis like this picture that is shown here? That is actually a river system that we were working on a few years back in Cape Town. We actually sampled water from this river in the winter and spring, and by summer, this is what that place looked like. So what are we doing about it as a people, as a nation, as a continent? I hope we get some answers eventually. So for me, most of the things that I've been doing, they always anchored on, these global imperatives. And if you look at these 17 SDGs, I normally group them into three. Each of these 17 SDGs falls into either the economy, environment, or, the social systems. But you may agree with me that a majority of these SDGs, they are actually linked to water, whether it's marine or fresh water or other ways of water contributing to other things. So water is that important, is that critical. And of course, the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, we have a beautiful document there talking about the Africa that we want, all of the things, the quality of life we want, transformed economies, and so on and so forth, ocean economy. None of all these beautiful ideas that I don't want to start running through one after another, they're good, but are we really getting there? And what are the challenges that we have that is preventing us from doing justice to this? And of course, in our country here in South Africa, we have an NDP, the National Development Plan, that talks about poverty elimination, reduced inequality, and so on and so forth by 2030. But the recent, review of that already showed us that we are far from reaching, whether it's economic growth or employment is still very high, especially amongst our youth and women. Poverty and inequality is still one of the widest in the world. And infrastructure, we lack the state-of-the-art infrastructure that is required to reclaim the wastewater that we use. And, it's kind of speaks to some of the issues we encounter as professionals in academia, in the research space, and those that are professionals in governance and municipalities, for example, because oftentimes it's us versus them, but it's really not us versus them, it's everybody in it together. And if you take the issue of wastewater treatment plants, for example, some of the systems, the plants we have, most of the systems we have today, not only in Africa, and I've been privileged to visit other places, they were not designed to deal with some of the contaminants and pollutants we're talking about now today for many reasons. Many reasons about their measurement and identification. In the past, it was difficult. They were not big deal. We didn't understand they meant that much in terms of health, ecological and human health risks that they pose before now. But now we have those issues and we need to improve on the systems and all of those. Those are things that are beyond the ability of our colleagues and other people that work in those plans. Rather, it should be other people coming to place, both government and private sector participation, I dare to say, that must come to the table at this point in time, and we will get to some of the things. So in this NDP, the primary goal was to achieve water security, to provide universal access, to address climate change, and to protect our water systems. But the big question is, are we there? Are we water secure in Africa? Are we water secure in South Africa? Are we water secure, on our continent? Do we have universal access to water? How are we dealing with the issue of climate change affecting because of the droughts and the accompanying? What are we doing to mitigate it so that we don't have dried up rivers like the one that was on my slide, the previous slide that I showed? So those are the questions. How are we protecting? Because one of the goals of our NDP 2030 is to protect our natural resources. How much protection are we giving to these very scarce natural resources? And why is this important to me? It is important, and I will give you some quick statistics about how much water we have. So most of the water on Earth is marine, which is salt water that is really difficult to reclaim for human use especially, and for other uses we use water for. And the only 3% of it is just fresh waters, the ones underground, the ones in the rivers and our lakes. And, out of this 3% that we have, only 1% of it is accessible because these other 99%, they are locked elsewhere, either under the ground or in polar ice or glaciers. So the only accessible ones for us are the ones in our lakes, swamps, and rivers. And of course, most of the time, the ones we tap into for domestic use, for industrial use and other uses, they are from the rivers most times. So this is a really, really scarce resource that we have to be intentional about how we manage it. And here, I want to just quickly present all of the functions and services of our river systems. So if you imagine our water resources providing all of these different uses and functions and services for us, and others like spirituality, people go to pray. I personally, when I feel like I'm tired, I'm exhausted and all of those, that my go-to place is either to go by a river or go by the beach and just enjoy it. And I kind of get back on my strength and all of those. So these water resources, they are really, really important to us, to our well-being. And in fact, they are essential for our existence on Earth. So, but of this small water that we have, we need to produce our food, and people are projecting more than 70% food will be necessary by 2050 for about 9 billion people. And of course, whatever we are producing, a third of it goes to waste every time. And climate change makes agriculture and other things vulnerable, and other things like emerging pests and shifting agroecosystems, extreme weather, puts agriculture more under extreme pressure. So, but for me, we know that agriculture is one of the highest emitters of greenhouse gases that exacerbates climate change also. So the big question for me on this particular slide is, do we really need to continue producing food and pulling down forests and vegetation to produce food. If there's so much food, I think one of the arguments these days is that the world already produces enough food for the population on Earth. The problem is distribution. Is it possible to start redistributing food the way we redistribute gold, diamond, oil to other parts of the world? Is it something the world, a conversation the world want to have and start engaging in? Because it's this one planet that everybody has to survive and to live in. And just to give you a context with this table, it's just a table I always use to demonstrate water footprint of an individual on a daily basis. If you take a chocolate bar, if you eat an apple and all of those, kind of give you an idea of how, as individuals, we also contribute to water use in terms of production systems and what goes into it from beginning until it gets to our table and we trash off the remaining that we couldn't finish. And I guess it's one of the reasons why, for me personally, trashing food or throwing things to waste is almost a sin for me, because I understand what comes to each plate and what the energy, the water, and everything that comes into it before it gets to that point. So we have all kinds of issues, my people. We need water for different kinds of uses, for industrial processes, to make our life better, recreational purposes, ecosystem services, agriculture, spirituality, and so on and so forth. So what then happens is that because of these different uses we put water into, we have issues of inaccessibility. Some people have more access than others. Some people can not have enough to clean, to cook for a day, while others have more than enough for them to do the flood systems, to cook, to have a pool, to irrigate their plants and things like that. And we have issues of inequitable distribution. Sometimes some people can even afford it, but because of where they find themselves, they cannot have that access because the access is preferred to other places. And of course, inappropriate pricing of our water is a big issue, because the big issue for me personally is it okay for us as a people to price a liter of water for people that need 50 liters just to go by on a daily basis, with other people that need 1,000 or 2,000 every day to maintain the pools, irrigate the plant, flush the systems, and all of those. So for me, pricing is a big issue in terms of accessibility and equity issues and things like that. And of course, that comes with pollution. Even at individual levels, when we throw our water down the drain, how do we throw it? Do we throw it down with oil and all of it? Because all of those goes into the pricing and the cost of, treating the water and the wastewater at the end of the day, unfortunately. So even at individual levels, at industrial level, pollution is a big one. Public health issues comes with pollution, because when people flush down their pharmaceutical residues and things that they think can just be flushed down into the public sewerage systems, those can lead to other issues and ecosystem degradation, of course. So for me, because we know that South Africa is among the 30 driest countries, that is a fact. What I've seen is that there is inequities in many ways: rural versus urban access, agriculture versus domestic use, and so on and so forth. Some sectors of our country, they have assets, they own water, large amounts of water that they can even donate during crisis, whereas other people don't have enough for this domestic uses. That for me is a bit problematic. And of course, there's pollution issues, like I mentioned earlier on, and this impacts on water degradation and on even distribution. Infrastructure is a big one. We have aging systems, we have lack of maintenance culture, we have corruption, eating into the governance of our systems. And of course, we have sometimes misaligned priorities. So many times when people say, oh, but there are no funds, for me, sometimes it's about how do we prioritize the little funds that we have? If we fill the funds that we have, it will be more useful in these spaces, then we will prioritize them. And of course, there is data gap in terms of what we need, the adequate monitoring and enforcement. Sometimes they hinder informed decision-making processes. So, and these slides, they're not Google pictures. All of these, they were pictures I took from my time in the field and out there. And people that are familiar with water and water quality, when you see water colors like this and one foaming like this, you don't even need a tox test to determine what is happening in those water. You know, you probably already have phosphates or nitrates in this type of effluent going into another river system. And of course, some of our river systems, this one is actually in Nigeria. From Nigeria, this is adjacent to a river system. And this is what, and we know that we need to provide goods and services. We need to do things to live longer, to live well, and all of those. But as we're doing it, we need to understand that this is the one earth that we have that we need to keep for the next generation and our great-great-grandchildren that will come. We need to be conscious of all of those. Some of the things that I've done in the past, I'm not going to bore you with all of the work that we've done, but the story I want to tell with this slide is that we've done quite a lot in terms of chemical pollutants in water systems. We did a bit of microorganisms also in water systems, and we know they are there in our rivers, in our wastewater effluents, they are everywhere. We even did a few of remediation studies trying to using materials to remove some of these things in water. But the big question for me is that what does it mean for the average woman that is still, packing lunch in a microplastic, in a plastic lunchbox for her child or to school every day? What does it mean to, for the average person on the street who thinks, oh, my unused medicines, I can just flush it down? The work that I do, how does it translate into what people in government, they are doing? How does it translate to the average person on the street? I guess those are the big questions we need to ask ourselves. But again, for me, exclusion issues in environmental management, especially water resources management, is a big issue. Many times government manage water resources on behalf of the people. And so the custodians of those rivers that have been there, their ancestors have been there, understand what happens during different seasons. They don't feel like it's their own any longer. They cannot own it because now it belongs to government, quote unquote, and that is problematic. And I think one of the big issues that I have also is the issue of resource allocations with regards to gender. We know that for most African communities, the male child is preferred over the female child. Even if the male child is not available, is still the owner of those resources when those resources are there. So making people being part of it, not a Mungo Park that discovered River Niger in Nigeria. Because the question I always ask is that when Mungo Park discovered that river, which river were the indigenous people of that basin drinking from? What was happening to that river? So these are some of the knowledge, and like the Gen Z people will say, we've been scammed in our education. That is what we were taught. And I think it's time, like Prof. Majola said earlier on, to start learning and unlearning the science we were taught in terms of contextualizing it to our African system. As an environmental chemist, an environmental toxicologist, if I do the same study and I collect samples the same way in Cape Town City Center and I collect samples in Kailija or Guguletu the same day that there was a rainfall, the kind of result I will see will be different. So perhaps I will have dilution of some contaminants in the city, whereas in those places I will have multiples of whatever I measured in the city for different reasons. So we have to start contextualizing our science and our knowledge and be bold about it wherever we find ourselves. Because I know sometimes it's not also easy. We get to spaces where you talk about your science, and some people, because that is what they've always known, they can't understand what your science means. It is on us as Africans, as South Africans, to know, to do what we do best the way we know how to do it, but to contextualize it in a way that is relevant to our own people and our own communities. So for me, the big challenge, and I think for most societies, for most governments, is that how do we balance the quality of the life we're living with creating good and vibrant and healthy economies and maintaining ecological and human health of our environment. So that is the big challenge. So it's now, for me, everything is situated in the environment, because what if we didn't know anything before now, after COVID-19, we should understand now that everything, economy, our health, and the ecological health, they are all situated in the environment. So how do we find this delicate balance such that the dynamics of these three concentric cycles it's maintained at all times to give us a healthy planet to live in? So for me, when we're talking about leadership in water governance, it's more about the vision and stewardship, not just managing it. Who is in charge of that? If somebody wants to use the water, how much do we give the person? How much do we charge for our leadership? Is more than that. It's about the vision, strategic leadership questions that we can start asking ourselves. Is that how is one of them is how do we inspire accountability and collaboration in that sector? How can we make people accountable to the water, the way they use water, the way they access water, the way they pay for water? And how can we inspire collaboration among the different sectors of our economy? And the second one that I want to ask for those of us in academics is that how can we all, as scientists, as communities, as policymakers, how can we co-create water futures that is sustainable? So for me, strategic leadership is very key. We have to start thinking about accountability issues, collaboration, because we know that many times in Africa, and in Africa, I can talk confidently about Africa, I don't know about other continents, we have issues of leadership failures. Failures in terms of short-termism. Somebody can be the minister today, and 3 months down the line is done some work, then the politics changes, we put another minister there, the next minister, pull down everything that has been built for the last 3 months, and we start all over again. And sometimes it's also fragmented mandates. This year is Department of Water and Forestry, the next time is Environment and Natural Resources, and the other time is Environment and Tourism. And so there are all of those issues that comes into governance of our water resources. And of course, many times there is lack of coordination, because sometimes a part of the water falls with, natural resources that includes marine water, and sometimes it's tourism and environment in other places. So sometimes it's agriculture and something else. So there's no coordination. And sometimes you need to make informed decisions. We don't even know as scientists which department that we need to go to at every point in time. So that is a problem. And I think one of the things we can start thinking about is adaptive systems and systems leadership. How can we adapt? How can we do cross-sectoral approaches that link water to food, energy, and climate in the in our management strategies? How do we build ethical leadership, transparencies, equity, environmental justice, and resource allocation? Because whether we like it or not, many of the issues we find ourselves dealing with in Africa, there are issues of equity, there are issues of injustices. And like a wise person said some years back, he said, if those of you that are in power and are empowered and you have resources, you refuse to support the others that are in need, the children of the ones in need, they will not allow your own children to rest at the end of the day. And so issues of equity and environmental justice is something that we need to be serious about in South Africa and in Africa at large in terms of sustainable water management. And of course, I talked about how communities can play an important role in our water management strategies, because these communities, they are the one, they are in nature, they are in sync with these water resources. They know when it flows, they know how to navigate it, they know when the color changes to a particular color, they understand what is coming. We can start tapping into those indigenous knowledge systems going forward, because there's lots of them that I don't want to start talking about in these presentations, because we would not have enough time to do that. And of course, we have lots of other programs that are sustainable, that are successful in Africa, like the Botswana case study. There's the groundwater management strategy of Kenya. And of course, the Western Cape, I think they're doing a great job at managing the water resources since the zero scare that we had. So for me, how can we shape the future? I think shaping the water management future as a continent entails a holistic inclusivity. I will put it that way. We need technological innovations for wastewater recycling, desalination, digital water monitoring, and so on and so forth. And of course, we need transdisciplinary partnerships, multi-sectoral partnerships, industry, different kinds of disciplines within academia, civil society, co-developing sustainable solutions together. And of course, capacity building for me is a big thing. Most developing economies, most developing world, they rely mostly on education, on knowledge-driven decision-making processes. And that is where Africa should be investing also now. So I think the public-private sector collaboration, it's an area that maybe our government must explore further. So the big question I always ask myself is, so what now? I believe indigenous knowledge systems is something that at every level, up to global level, we need to start incorporating into our systems, or into how we do things, how we manage things. It's strategy. There's lots of information. Many times there are actually cheaper alternatives when we are open to indigenous knowledge systems, and we achieve far more sustainable results. Perhaps we should also start redefining knowledge transfer, because many times when we talk about knowledge transfer, we're thinking from the north to the south. But from my own little journey on earth, I'm still young. I will just turn 59 in January. But knowledge transfer, there's a lot of knowledge in the south, in Africa, that we can take to the north, that the north should be open to also, to take from us. And for example, we're talking about pollution from industrial effluents. Many of these industries, they feed agricultural production systems for pesticides and plant protection chemicals and things like that. But when I was young, my grandmother will, she will keep her beans using dry chili peppers. And the bean will be there to be whole for months, nothing, no weevil infestation, no insect infestation for months. We can start tapping to some of those things. There's issue of other plant materials that are used for different materials. When I was a young child in my village, when people had guinea worm, they will go to the river and they will take water from that river or take the person to the river to soak his or her leg into the river. The worm will come out of the leg using just with that water. So there is a lot of knowledge here that we can, whatever causes it, whatever chemical attracts, these are things that we as scientists, we as researchers, that we probably want to start thinking about in terms of knowledge systems. And many times we try to intervene in situations based on assumed solutions or perceived solutions. And a good example that I always take is, some people thought, oh, these poor people, they don't have water. There's no potable water. Let's fix potable water, some meters, some meters away from all of the houses here. But after doing that intervention, the community, they were really upset because for them, the time they used to fetch water 1 kilometer down is the time they had to socialize with their friends. So perhaps the intervention would have been to put more taps 1 kilometer down so that the space can be used as a social space as well as a place to fetch water. So, and these situations happen because when we try to intervene, when we're trying to put things in position, we don't usually engage with the people we're trying to support or assist, quote and unquote. So, and that is a problem. And I think that is, we need to start rethinking the way we do things. One thing that is common these days also is the so-called green solutions. I'm all for green. I did some green solutions, but one of the things that we've also seen is that many times we try to replace one evil with another devil. Some years back, there was a plasticizer that people thought is bad in the plastics and all of those, and a different one was synthesized. It happened few years down the line, we discovered that even the one that was replaced, it was more toxic to the one that was replaced, and the metabolites were far more deadly. They were deadlier. So when I hear about biodegradable plastics, the question that comes to my mind is how degradable is that degradability? Before it became a plastic, what were the additives that were added to it? What was the process that went into it? How many liters of water went into the production? How much energy went into it? And because all of those add up at the end of the day to our sustainability issues and sustainability calculations, for lack of words. So we have opportunity as a continent now for innovation. We can now become, a region that is really, really focused on innovation that will work for our people, innovation that will work for our continent. And I think for me, one of the biggest issues is these regional blocks that we have. So to put things into perspective, if I need to travel to Europe or US or Canada today, the longest days that I have to get to my visa is a week. Sometimes it's 2 days for the US. But if I need to go to Zambia or Tanzania, or I want to go to an African country that is not ECOWAS, in fact, the last time I went to one of the countries, I needed another Asian colleague to intervene on my behalf to get an African visa. That for me in itself, it's a problem. And because we have, for argument's sake, in Nigeria today, people that speak Igbo or, in Cameroon and Nigeria, based on the partition of convenience when Africa was being partitioned. In the southwestern Nigeria, where I come from, we have Yorubas of the southwest where I come from, and we have Yorubas in the Republic of Benin. Myself and the Yorubas in the Republic of Benin, we cannot work together because they speak French, I speak English. So the big question is, again, how do we pull down all of these barriers that has been imposed on us? Because we cannot blame colonialism or slave trade forever. We are here now. How do we break down these barriers going forward so that there is more integration? We have lots of river basins, the Niger River Basin, the Nile, the Limpopo, the Congo river basins, and we all depend on each other for these rivers to be healthy. How do we, drive economies that can be self-sustaining rather than us fighting over aid calls at all times in Africa? These are some of the questions I have myself. So for me, I think we've got a lot of needs in terms of water. We need this water on a daily basis for different things. And of course, we have all these issues, some of them that I've highlighted. But I think going forward, multidisciplinarity, engagement, such as the one we are having now, policy formulation, I think we have lots of great policies. The implementation is a different ball game. We need, in Africa today, we have little or nothing that is called citizen science. I think it's something we need to start doing more of now. Collaborations among sectors, among disciplines, and all of those. And I think good governance, how we can achieve that is a big question also that I don't know. Have an answer to at this stage. So as I close today, I just want to leave us with a little challenge that leadership in water management is not about controlling water, it's about working with water. It's about leading with, not just our expertise, but also with courage to take difficult decisions. It's not just about compliance. I did some work some years back with about few years back with the wastewater treatment plant. And, when we did all of this, the effluent discharge was compliant. But when I subjected the effluent to other types of tests, I discovered that it was non-compliant. So many times we tick boxes, we do the things that we do just to tick boxes. It is not enough. It's about what is it that we're leaving behind for the next generation. It's about leading with intention and leading with the intent of making sure that we're not just ticking the boxes, we're doing the right things for the right reasons. And I think for me, personal leadership is key. So how do I model water stewardship in my daily practice? When I'm in my kitchen, when I'm in my shower, when I'm doing all the things that I need to do, I think that is personal leadership that everybody should reflect on. And of course, institutional leadership goes about how institutions, how organizations ensure accountability. How do they ensure everybody's accountable to the way they engage with water? And of course, inclusivity in that sense also. And of course, all of us together as Africans, how do we lead the world in reimagining the relationship between people and water? Because if there's anything I didn't know before this decade, one thing I know is that Africans, we have very brilliant people and we have everything on this continent that other continents don't have, whether it's natural resources or human resources, which are the main key. They are the two main key resources. How do we collectively explore the things that we've been endowed with to the benefit of our people? For me, from B Solutions and Consultancy Services, we have opportunities for collaborations in many ways. And I need to acknowledge the Lord God Almighty, the giver of life and everything possible, all things that is beautiful, the one that has given me life to be here this evening, and of course, my family, my students, my collaborators, and my networks. Thank you very much. And I will leave you with this quote. Leadership in Africa's water management means prioritizing equitable access, embracing inclusive collaborations, and fostering knowledge-driven initiatives. And together, we can achieve water justice and a water secure future. God bless you all, and thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, my professor. If you can just close the screen of the presentation from your side. Ladies and gentlemen, why don't you do exactly what we are doing now? Please do it more. If you can just touch those reactions there, whether it's a heart or the hand, or just to show some appreciation and acknowledgement to our professor there for such an informative, very instructive, and very impactful presentation. Thank you so much, Prof. Wow. Yeah, this is what this community of leadership is all about, where we really gain knowledge every week, knowledge after knowledge after knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to waste any time. Anyone wants to ask a question or make a comment, please shoot so that we manage time wisely. And then we will thank the professor later. My professor, as other colleagues are still coming, I see Sis Nomkita, I'll take just now. How do we, like in other countries, I think in US, I don't know how many states, but there's a state in US where really they've tried to make sure that absolutely nothing is wasted. Um, uh, Anything that is used, it's converted, it's used, obviously it may be some innovation there, so, some technology they have. In Africa, in South Africa, is it doable? What do we have? What do we need other than leadership, of course, that we need? Any thoughts there? Then I'll take Nomkita. Over to you.
Thank you, Prof. A very good question. I've been to the US before. US will not be my, I mean, they have good water management strategies and for different states in the US, but US will not be my reference point for this particular question. The country is not, it's that I will refer to is the unpopular one for us in South Africa, Israel. I was privileged to be in Israel in 2006, doing water and seeing water management and all of those. And what struck me with that experience was actually one day we were coming back from a plant and I was sitting in the bus, I was crying literally in the bus. And people were asking me, but why are you crying? And it's like I got so overwhelmed with emotion when I looked back into where I was coming from with all of the water resources, still no water in the taps. And these people, they have these little water resources. So for them, they do what they call precision agriculture, for example. So they do fertigation. They don't irrigate. Fertigation is you add your fertilizer into the irrigation water, and when they're supplying that water, there's not supplying a meal of water over and above what that plant needs for that day. So it's really precision. So you can't see irrigation water flowing in their fields. So that in itself, it's magic. And I think it's no longer what is the word? A rocket science for us in Africa because we have engineers, we have scientists, we have that can model these things and make it work for us. We drank from the wastewater treatment plant. Maybe I should have put one of those, and it was crystal clean. So recently, less than a decade ago, Western Cape was trying something similar, and I'm really explorative when it comes to water. People think I belong to the water. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But when it's water, I'm passionate about water. I want to see how we can contribute for more to get more water for people. And I was part of the people that tasted that water. So it's sewage water that they're trying to treat like the one I saw in Israel. But I still found the yuck factor. So it's the odor. Yeah. So in it. But again, it's things we can build upon. It's things because odors can be removed. There are technologies to remove odors. There are technology. So we should, but I think the bottom line is there should be because somebody has to pay for these things. Whether it's the private sector, the people that use more water more than other people, or government engaging with them and bringing them to the table. There has to be a way of funding some of these things so that it can work because we don't have the water. We just don't have it. And it will dry up if we don't manage the one we have. So we have to find a way of reusing our water now as soon as possible. And many countries are already doing that. I mean, Botswana have been doing it since forever. Other countries have been doing it, and you wouldn't even know if you are not told. Some people put 1/3 of reclaimed water back into the potable water. Some people use 50/50 depending on where they are across the globe. So yeah, that would be my response. There are things that we can do, but we can start by ourselves by not wasting water in our homes at individual level. So when we're washing the dishes, we can, not allow the tap to be running endlessly because it's available there, because it doesn't mean it's available. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, my professor. Thank you. I will take my two colleagues there. I see Sisnum Kitamona, and then we'll be followed by Dr. Tandewe Gama in that order, please. And I'll ask the professor to respond to those two. Over to Sisnum Kit.
Thank you very much, Prof. Majola. And really, Prof. Beatrice, I'm very excited. So do excuse me if I ramble on a bit. This topic was extremely exciting, and the manner of presentation and the information that you shared with us this evening is really really good. So what I wanted to start with is the redefinition of knowledge transfer. And I think we make mistakes as countries in Africa in particular, that this kind of presentation should actually be multidisciplinary, like you said. And I see this, the mistake we make is really that we would ask you to come and present to the Ministry of Water and Environment, etc. And yet this kind of presentation belongs in cabinet meetings, because all ministers, all presidents, everybody has to hear what you are talking about. So if we look at, Africa being the continent of the future, water leadership definitely has to be at the forefront. I also have heard a while ago that World War III would be fought on water. And each day that goes, I see why and how that would be. I mean, I heard this maybe 20, 25 years ago, and I couldn't believe it, because each time I open a tap, water flows. But as I get more educated and more understanding, particularly around South Africa being a water scarce country, that for me is becoming a reality. You did ask a question earlier in your presentation as to whether our response was a crisis one. I do think that we do have a crisis response in our approach. And the problem with that is that it's temporary. There was day zero in Cape Town, and everyone read it around, and they increased tariffs. People started using water less. But after all that was gone, people forgot about it. I'm from Port Elizabeth, and we were the next one to have a scare of a water scarcity and a day zero. And when there's a bit of rain, people forget about it. So my much as I'm talking about, I mean, making commentary, my question is around the role of education on the water issues. Because I am afraid that one day during my own lifetime, I'll open a tap, and the water will be dry. I would have the money to pay for it, but there just won't be water. I was very shocked at the consumption table that you showed us. I myself was not, aware of that. And that's something that now I'm going to start thinking differently about my consumption, what it does to water, and all sorts of other things. I do have a lot of other comments, Prof, but I really think perhaps I should give other people a chance. I'm very excited by this and very impressed. Thank you so much, Professor Beatrice.
Thank you, Sister Nkita. Thank you so much for your kind comments. And I agree with you in many ways with your contribution. Thank you so much. And we can connect also, and we can chat about it more if you wish. Yeah.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can we take Dr. Tandewe Gama? Over to you, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you, and good evening to everyone, colleagues. Wow, Prof. Beatrice, what an interesting topic. I think happening about such pertinent topics. I mean, water is our life. So we can't afford to be really loose and a bit backward in terms of our thinking there. But I think what sort of I would say shocked me, yes, probably is that South Africa is one of the 30 driest countries in the world. And for me, looking at our crisis right now, like Susnam Kita said, we already have a water crisis in South Africa. We have experiences of people turning their taps and not finding water for days, some of them going into weeks. We have trucks all over that are taking waters to people. It's going wrong in every corner in South Africa in terms of water. So for me, I'm sitting, I'm listening, I'm thinking, even in our response, in our reaction to that, we are still sort of missing the point here. We are still sort of looking at short-term solutions rather than looking at proactive planning for the next 30, 40, 60 years. There is something for our next generation. And I ask, let alone the thinking about it, to say what will happen with the next generation if already right now in our lifetime we are sitting and thinking, can it happen that one day I open the tap and there is no water? And there is no sign that there could be any water anytime soon. I mean, you raised three crises, which I think personally, at least at that level, in terms of the country, in terms of the cabinet, in terms of the scientists that we have in our country, because I'm sure we do have. If we know that there's three crises, like you indicated, there's a climate change. Everybody speaks about climate change. At least in the last decade or so, we've been speaking about climate change. The biodiversity loss, we all know about it. Well, not we all know, but at least there's so much knowledge and research being done on that as well. Issue of pollution, we've been talking about this forever. We know these crises. We haven't done anything progressive about it. We haven't done anything even proactive in terms of long life planning. It's that's why I'm saying maybe I'm shocked, but also I think a part of me is saying, okay, maybe this is also a wake-up call for all of us as leaders, maybe in this platform, but also as leaders in different spheres, to say, hey, the experience we are having now is not just a short term, so it doesn't need just a short term solution. It needs thorough planning, proactive planning over years, over a longer than what
Dr. Tandewe, thank you, my sister. Seems like your connection is.
action that we are having. I don't know, I've said so much, but I think you've had should start. Yes, thank you, Prof. Okay, maybe let me
Thank you.
lead here. Let me just hear the comments of Prof. from what I've
Thanks, my
said. Thank
sister.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you. I saw Dr. Edith Palane. Probably, let's just take Dr. Edith Palane, and then you can respond to three of the professor about that.
No
And
problem.
we'll take the last round after that, and then we'll close the session. Doc Palane, over to you. Is Doc Palane still here? Okay, maybe you can just take those two for now, Prof, and then we can take another round after that. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Prof. I think for me, I mean, Sister Nandiwe already said it all. And like I said, it's more of questions for me also that I don't necessarily have answers for. But one thing I do know is that I fear for my grandchildren. I mean, most of us around this table, we've had a bit of the good life. We've had access to water before now. But what's going to happen to my children and my grand and great grandchildren? That for me triggers so many things in me, and many of the things that I do these days, many of the work I engage in, it has to do with sustainability at the end of the day. How do we tap into these resources that we have access to, these opportunities we have access to, these tables we have access to? How do we use them in a way that is sustainable, so that when the next generations come, they find a healthier system to take from us? That for me is the bottom line. Whatever we're doing, we have to be conscious of the fact that we are on some people call it loan. We have all that we have now is on loan from the next generation and generations to come. Whether it's a house you have now, someday you will leave the house for other people to take. However, that change will happen. Whether it's a position, you have to leave that position someday for other people to occupy. Whether it's a resource you are managing. So when we are conscious, we are aware of these things, we will be more intentional about how do we prioritize our time, how do we prioritize our energy, how do we prioritize our resources, the resources that are available to us, how do we make the best of it so that it stretch a little bit further. I think that for me will be a way to go. So I don't necessarily have all the answers, but I think our answers should always, always be bigger than us. It should always, always be greater than us. Whether it's a curriculum we're trying to, to rebuild or reconstruct in terms of curriculum renewal, we need to know that it's no longer about us. It's about those graduates we are trying to take to the marketplace. It's about the resources that we manage. So we have to have all of those. When we have access to finances, we have to know that it's been entrusted into our hands to make it to stretch it as far as possible for the optimal benefit of our people. And that would be my response to that at this point, yeah. But it goes a long way when we create the world that we want to see around us. And then others like us can gravitate towards us. That's how we found Professor Majola in the first place, because you creating this platform and this community and other people that of like-minded to get to gravitate. So we need to do that. And then the little drops of water all over Africa becomes the mighty ocean that we want to see at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much. Let's just see in the chat room. Dr. Edith Palane, equitable access in water utilization. Tandiwe was saying that, Dr. Tandiwe, South Africa being the 30th driest countries in the world, and Professor Chioma, good evening, distinguished professors, Majola Beatrice, leaders, glad to be here, well done, great scientist, and presenter, Doc Edith. Yes, Prof, it is critical to advance South-to-South knowledge generation and dissemination for us to realize the Agenda 2063 and SDGs. And Bukeka, good evening, Prof. Majola and Prof. Beatrice. Thank you for sharing your insights on water leadership and its impact, particularly on food production and poverty alleviation in our continent. Marure, well done. Dr. Soraya, great presentation, Prof. Beatrice. PM Gati, very insightful presentation. Doc, Edith, thank you, Prof, for enlightening education presentation. Prof. Chioma, brilliant. Talk, dear Prof. And then Bong Musa Madlogo for greetings, leaders. Thanks to Professor for an interesting presentation and constructive strategic plan about water tragedy. Industrial pollution is one of the major problems which jeopardizes the wastewater treatment plants. Our community requires more workshops about disposal of garbage and other waste on non-biodegradable substances in sewer lines. Sislinde, thanks so much for a great presentation. Your presentation reminds me of the Inner Development Goals or International Development Goals Summit that just ended. For us to implement the necessary shifts, especially as Africans, we need to do deep inner development. Dr. Ndidi, an awesome Q&A session, my distinguished Prof. Beatrice and Wabisa. Our actions should be linked to the SDG 2030 in terms of water. The reactions and planning should be crisis-based and from the ground up. Thank you, colleagues. I see a hand there from my sister, Dr. Soraya. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you, Prof. Great presentation. Yes, thank you to Beatrice, Prof. Beatrice. I've got just something that I would like you to ponder on for me. You know, we have this integrated water system that the UN promotes for us to integrate our water. And Africa has got a lot of integration where water resources are concerned. So how are we going to overcome this stalemate on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam? You know, that conflict between Sudan and Egypt, not allowing this dam to go ahead, which is beneficial for hydroelectricity for the whole of Africa, because the Blue Nile is such a powerful source. But of course, then you have the Egyptian and then you have the Sudan argument of how it would diminish their water. So how are we going to find some common ground for that? Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Soraya, Dr. Soraya. Soraya is my friend, Prof. Majola. Please forgive us now. But you know, I did talk about Africa having to deal with issues that our generation met on ground, not because of our making, not necessarily because of our making. The partitioning of Africa put Africa in many of these issues. So now we have kingdoms, you know, that are, that are not necessarily nations. So if you look at most successful countries of the world, they are nations. Nations means people of similar cultures, similar language, you know, tradition and all of those. It's easier for them to be a people than when different cultures and different people are forcefully merged together to be a nation. And some of the issues that around water impoundment has to do with ecosystem functions and systems also scientifically. So every time a river is dammed, it has consequences upstream and downstream. And we can't go into all of those now. So there may be sedimentation upstream, downstream. There may be, not enough water downstream. Upstream, there may be overflowing, and there can be all kinds of things. There can be disruptions. There can be all kinds of things from scientific point of view. So sometimes when some countries don't want certain projects to be situated for the benefit of others, it's sometimes for the good reason. But it doesn't mean that those reasons and those challenges cannot be overcome if we see ourselves as a people, because there's nothing we can do about the partitioning of Africa again. It has been partitioned the way it was partitioned. But we have an organization now called African Union. So I recently heard and had information that the the SDG 17s, they were actually carved out of the Agenda 2063 of African Union. So that tells you how brilliant we are as Africans. So we have all of these resources, we have all of this human, capacity across our continent. How do we harness everything to the benefit as a continent? Now is the time to pull down those barriers. How we want to pull it down, I don't know, because it's limiting in many ways. The barriers of nations and countries not able, even if being able to relate with themselves, it's limiting. And if you go to South Africa, you go to West Africa, you go to Northeast Africa, you will see different kinds of international politics and dynamics going on from the East and the West blocks. The bottom line is the East will look after the East, the West will look after the West. Africans can only be pawns. Africa must look after Africa now and make our own choices and decisions. And we cannot do that if we rely on other blocks to come to to save us at every time. Perhaps Africa needs to close up for another decade and say, now we want to focus on Africa, our science, our innovations, our education, our industry. We want African focused, African empowered, African enabled, so that we can think as Africans and do things that will benefit Africans, not things that, because China will be in charge of that project, then Americans are not happy about it, or the Russians are not happy because it's Americans doing this one, because all of those play important roles, and because he who pays the piper dictates the tunes also. When we take their money as loans to do things, then we have to do what they want us to use their money to do also. So I don't have all the answers, but this is the time to start asking ourselves difficult questions and asking our leaders some difficult questions that we need to find hard answers to if we're serious about sustainable development in Africa. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, my professor. Thank you. I think now we have Dr. Edith Palan is here. I thought she was not there. Okay, she's still here. Thank you so much. Yeah, I must say, I'll ask my professor, Prof. Gordon Zide, just to thank the speaker. I hope the prof is okay to do that. I'll really ask him, but as he will be asking, my professor, I'm very moved by this presentation, and I really do think, obviously, we will discuss this as well in terms of how do we take this forward, because we cannot just discuss something like this and then we always say in this platform, yes, we are scholars, we are leaders, but there are certain things that we cannot just leave them like that. So even if we have to engage the presidency or engage the Department of Water and Sanitation and see how we can take this forward as well in terms of the programs, or even, Prof. Beatrice spoke about collaborative a lot in this, and this is a very serious issue, really, something that needs to be, it needs that collaborative and holistic approach from schools to churches to all those mass-based institutions, chiefs, local authorities, to talk about the importance of water, how important it is. But we'll talk about it, my professor. Just if you can thank the speaker for now, and then we'll close after that. Go ahead, my professor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, my professor. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
You are my professor. Okay. Go ahead, yes, sir. Okay. Go ahead, thank you.
No, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, my professor. And I also want to thank Professor Beatrice on behalf of WILD. I think the many comments that have come have really indicated and demonstrated what a powerful presentation this was. Prof, for some time, water management has been seen as belonging to a particular department, and that we as individuals, we don't really have much to contribute. But I think the presentation has, as Professor Beatrice towards the end, indicated that it is everyone's responsibility. Everyone's responsibility in the sense of personal leadership, institutional leadership, as well as collective leadership. So that is, to me, was an eye-opener. But of course, the Honorable Professor did mention quite a number of challenges which we as a country, which we as Africa, as a continent, are faced with. For instance, reference to climate change. Sometimes climate change is spoken of as a pie in the sky, but Professor Beatrice has managed to how the temperature, responds to climate change, poverty, drought, and severe storms, as well as global and local challenges. I think that was an eye-opener. But most importantly, I think that Professor Beatrice, you have referred to the South African National Development Plan, where there are a number of priority areas which the National Development Plan encompasses. But unfortunately, up until now, the NDP has just remained one of those big, beautiful policy documents where it talks about poverty alleviation, reduced inequality, economic growth, job creation, improved education and skills, and quality health. But none of those, well, not really none, but a large chunk of those challenges, as mentioned in the National Development Plan, have really, been realized. So that, to me, puts a very big challenge. And then, of course, I think you have mentioned linking water management to leadership and water governance. How do we inspire accountability and responsibility? And that part of this is really about strategic leadership is key. And of course, you also mentioned the leadership failures, adaptive and systems leadership, ethical leadership. My famous and as a subject, as well as how the community can play a bigger role in ensuring that there is water governance and water leadership, water management leadership. But most importantly, what the challenge that you put to us, Professor Beatrice, is that in the African continent, and I dare say, even in many spheres of government, you would find that one is given a term of 5 years, 3 years, etc. But even before the expiry of that term, one needs to be out and somebody else comes in, and that changes the whole cycle of planning. So that is something that we really need to do. And all these comments were made by the previous speakers. And, but most importantly, Prof, when you said, how can Africa shape the future? It really said to me that Africa, as a Pan-Africanist yourself, you said so, you are a Pan-Africanist in the core, and so I am, but it really puts a challenge to us as a Nomkita said that Africa is the future and the future is Africa. That is the message, which we really need to convey, not only at a cabinet level, but maybe also at a community level, because all these processes can be driven from the grassroots to the top and not a top-down approach. And finally, Professor, when you mentioned Africa's opportunities, I said, wow, this is great. And I think your topic can be located within the school's curriculum. Because I tell you now, if everything is referred to government, it's bound to fail. Because those guys are just a group of individuals who are so much concerned about themselves. And I'm happy if some government officials are here. But what leadership needs, as you really indicated, that it has to be intentional, and it has to be personal, it has to be institutional, it has to be collective. And so I think you are so right, my professor. But what needs to come out of these conversations, as I was listening to you presenting and the comments made, and I said, if you have not already written a book about water management and leadership, maybe this is the opportunity, Prof. Majola, for our next book. And I want to insist that writing these books, it's not really a matter of just having a long list of publications behind your name, but the intention is, how do we encourage knowledge transfer? We can only encourage knowledge transfer through reading and writing. And for me, reading and writing starts at the primary level. It is time that as WILD, with presentations such as Prof. Beatrice's, that we should influence the direction which our education system is taking. And I think with those few words, my professor, thank you very much for such an instructive, informative, and inspirational talk. Thank you so much. God bless.
And thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Majola. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and your very valuable comments. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's an honor. Thank you so much, and God bless you all too. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my professor. Ladies and gentlemen, please do remember we've got our YouTube channel, and please do subscribe there, because all these videos, they go there, and then you'll have an opportunity to listen, to reflect, to remind yourself. So you can just go to Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development YouTube channel and subscribe there. You'll even, if you are new with us, you can even get material for all other sessions that we've had in the past. So you'll be very fulfilled there. So thank you so much. Yeah, Professor Beatrice, thanks, my sister. I don't know what to say. Prof. Zida has said it all. And you just, what you've done to us tonight, really, we've moved us, and then you've inspired us so much to take this matter or this subject so seriously, the water management that is so serious, as we are saying that as WILD as well. We'll try our most best is how we can influence there, and then obviously you are one of us to use you a lot, so that the beauty with this platform is that is the platform of experts, So we know that we've come to this area. We sent Prof. Beatrice that said, go ahead and deal with this issue. And then I really say this with humility, because as I always say, that you've got highly knowledgeable and I've got experts in this platform from different expertise. That's why we learn every week. And like it was water management today or this week. Next week, it will be another expert on something else. And that's how we grow. And that's how this platform has grew as well. And that's how it has come to what it is in over 5 years now, meeting every week. Can you imagine? Pulling people everywhere, people so busy, and scholars and leaders, because of what we get every week or every Wednesday. So thank you, Sis Beatrice. Thank you so much, my professor. Ladies and gentlemen, especially to those who joined us for the first time, please remember that we meet every Wednesdays wherever you are. I see so many colleagues from Nigeria and all everywhere. Please, thank you so much. Even those overseas, wherever you are connecting, do connect again. We meet every Wednesday, same place, same time, same login details, everything the same. And next week we'll be having another powerful presentation, as we always do. The session is adjourned now until we meet next week, Wednesday. Thank you so much. May God bless you. And may God bless Africa. Nkosi sigalele Africa. Thank you so much. And goodbye.
Thank you, Prof. Goodbye. Thank you.